Welcome to one of the top best city in the United States of America. Today is Monday, September 10th, 2012. Welcome to the special meeting, which is our first budget hearing here for the city of North Miami. Sitting at the North Miami Council Chambers, 776 Northeast 125th Street in North Miami, Florida. To begin our meeting this evening, I'm going to call on the Deputy City Clerk for roll call.
Vice Mayor Sterrell.
Here.
Councilman Galvin. Mayor Pierre.
Here.
Councilman Marcellus.
Here.
Councilman Blinn. You have a quorum.
Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum to conduct the business of the people this evening. For the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to call on Major Neil Quavers from the North Miami Police Department to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to call on Pastor Jack for the invocation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's always a privilege to be able to open these meetings with prayer. And like the Pledge of Allegiance says, we're one nation under God. And I know today we're doing the budget hearing. And I just wanted to read a scripture before I pray, because my prayer has to do with this scripture. St. Paul told Timothy, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." And then he goes on to say, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way they will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so they may take hold of the life that is truly life." So my prayer is that as we have this budget hearings and we settle on the budget for the city, that we would get our motives right as a city, as leaders and as citizens, and it would not be about us and our districts and our homes and our organizations, but it would be about the other person and God's blessing for them. Father, I thank you for the privilege of being able to pray. And as the Pledge of Allegiance says, that we are one nation under God. And as the DNC affirmed the use of the word God in their platform, we recognize that we cannot run our families, we cannot run our cities, we cannot run our own personal lives without your power. And we ask, God, that you would purify the motives and the intentions of people in this city, that from top to bottom and from bottom to top, you would purify our motives in the issue of money. You bless this city with millions of dollars. And we pray in the weeks and months and years to come that we would be good stewards of that money, and that we would not only fight for our piece of the pie, but we would look at the other person from the other side of the city, from the other side of the country, people who are struggling. We would look at the other business and see our interconnection to them. Bless our leaders. I thank you for the works that they've done in changing this city. And I pray that you would give them even more wisdom and even more purity of heart, and give them more justice and more grace to lead this city. Lord, I thank you for our mayor and our council people. Bless them, God. Bless our city manager. Anoint him. Give him wisdom. And I thank you, Lord, for the people of this city. Bless them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Jack. Pastor Jack, how was the gospel hour at Mocha yesterday? I tried to make it there, but we got caught up. Yesterday we were at like 6 different churches, so I didn't get a chance to really make it there. Really wanted to stop by and say congratulations on your first gospel hour at Mocha. But thank you so much for staying in the city and keeping up the faith. Appreciate it. Okay. We're going to move on. Mr. City Manager, order of business. Any changes, amendments?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and to our public attending. Just to give you a preliminary of the overall budget, if I may. As you know, at the end of 2010, last year, for the fiscal year ending in 2010-2011, we had a deficit of $628,000 in the general fund. I'm proud to announce that we had several cost savings measures that was able to recover us. When we did the CAFR ending last year, we in fact learned that we had a surplus of $328,000. As you know, that when we did the budget last year, we were $5.8 million deficit that we were covering. We balanced the budget with projected revenue. First of all, I like to say that we were able to recover that, as well as go into this fiscal year that we are reporting for 2012-13 with an additional $1 million that we were reporting in your preliminary budget book that was handed out. We did that because we were able to collect fees of about $600,000 from the Oats. We had several areas of forfeitures and fines. We also had personnel vacancies. We were able to go back to various contractors and reduce the amount of money that we had on those contracts to save the city money. Also, due to the fact that we did secure a contract with Biscayne Landing, apart from the $17.5 million, the city recovered the carrying costs and the legal fees. So all of which of these initiatives we were able to recover greatly without touching $17.5 million. You'll find that in this budget, once the presentation takes place, we like to provide some highlights. As you know, we were able to reduce the sanitation rate from $51 to $26 this year. That was a great savings to our residents. We're proud to say that in this bill, or in this budget, we're reducing that an additional $5. Overall, our residents are seeing a $30 reduction from $51 and change to $21 and change, effective October the 1st. As you know, that in this budget, we did do a Black and Veatch study. The council did pass a water rate study, and effective October 1st, as approved by council, there would be an adjustment accordingly annually for the next 5 years. Also, in this budget, we did outsource our building department. There will be some savings there, but also there will be no jobs lost. We plan to keep staff working there as clerks like they do now. To understand the outsourcing part, our building and zoning was already outsourced as far as we were using contract workers to do our inspections and plans review. So that portion will continue to be outsourced. In addition to that, this year, as to what was posted, there were some additions, grant-related items that you don't have. It's in your package, but to what we were posted online, since we had posted that, there are some additional grants that we provided in this budget. Again, it did not make the online version, but we did put it in your package.
Okay.
So further will come from Ms. Grant after your presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Before we proceed with the Budget Department presentation, which Kay and Duke are ready to move on. I want to say thank you to the city manager, Stephen Johnson, for, again, a job well done. As all of you know, he continues to prove that he is knowledgeable and capable of getting the job done with efficiency while putting the needs of North Miami residents first. Without a doubt, Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for being a public servant and committed to quality service. I have to say this is the first time in the history of this city that I can recall staff being so proactive in receiving the input of this community when balancing the budget. The city held 2 budget workshops, one last Wednesday and the other one last Thursday while we were competing with President Obama's speech. And several residents attended both budget workshops. Yesterday on Sunday, September 9th, the city manager and I, along with the staff, presented the budget to several congregations in North Miami from 10:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., reaching over 1,800 people about the proposed budget that we have for the city of North Miami. Tonight, we will review and discuss the proposed budget that has been carefully thought out and presented to the community for consensus. There are no fuzzy numbers, just a balanced budget taking into consideration the needs and desires of the people. The city's gross property tax revenue, and I think Kay and Duke will get into, is calculated at 95%. That is an additional $750,000 if the people don't take advantage of the early payment option, which most people don't usually do. So that's an additional $750,000 that I think that is there that the city will definitely carry over from the 2012-2013 to the 2013-2014 budget. It's a very conservative budget. The money is being spent well. So I commend Mr. Johnson and the budget department for stepping out of their comfort zone and working diligently to develop a balanced budget that is inclusive of the needs and opinions of the people of this great city of North Miami. We are going to proceed with the public hearings, and I think the first thing that we need to do is to turn it over to the budget department for their presentation. Can we have the record reflect that Councilman Galvin is here for the meeting?
The record do so reflect that, Mayor.
You may proceed.
Kay Grant, Budget Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, staff. Good evening, everyone. Over the last 3 years, the city has taken proactive steps to combat the fiscal realities that have affected our nation. As the economy recovers and with the direction set forth by the Mayor and Council, staff's goals in preparing this budget were to 1, continue to provide basic levels of service in the most equitable and efficient manner possible for both residents and employees, and 2, strategically begin to position North Miami for tremendous economic growth and expansion. Tonight, we're pleased to present a budget that includes $5 million in reserves in the general fund and another $12.5 million in unappropriated funding, all from the closing of Biscayne Landing. This presentation of fiscal year 2013 proposed budget will cover the proposed millage rate, the city's general fund revenues and expenditures. We'll talk a little bit about the enterprise funds, capital projects for 2013, and then a recap of the highlights of the budget. For the proposed operating millage rate, the unshaded area is the current year's budget, and the blue shaded area is the proposed budget. On July 1, the Property Appraiser's Office released the taxable property values for fiscal year 2012. The city of North Miami saw a 0.76% decrease in values. That was from $2.078 billion to $2.063 billion. Again, this is the smallest decline in the past 4 years. The current year's operating millage rate is 8.1955. Staff is proposing for next year 8.1000. That's a 1.18% decrease from last year, and even lower than the rolled back rate of 8.1037. At that rate, the revenues, the property tax revenues, is $15.8 million, allocated between the CRA and the city's general fund. The CRA receiving $1.06 million, and the city's general fund $14.8 million. A slight increase of 13% to the general fund. Please note that the revenues are calculated at 95%. As Mr. Mayor had said earlier, we anticipate homeowners taking advantage of the discount allowed if they pay their taxes early. The 8.1955 and the 8.100, as I discussed before, is the operating millage rate. We also have, in the current year, we also have a voted debt millage of 2.2188 for our general obligation bond. The bond matured in May of this year and the obligation satisfied in full. Therefore, the millage rate was eliminated for fiscal year 2013. So the total millage rate was reduced from 8.4143 to 8.1000, a 3.7% decrease to our millage. And for easy example, let's say you have a property with assessed value of $100,000 after all exemptions. You would pay $841 in taxes this year, but with the new rate, you would pay $810. And this takes us into the general fund, an overview of the sources of revenue, where it comes from. Our total general fund budget is $67,434,011. This chart breaks down the revenues into major categories, and then the following slides will go into more details of each category. Revenues are generated from taxes, 34%, non-revenues, intergovernmental revenues, or fines and forfeits, licenses and permits, or charges for services, and of course, the proceeds from Biscayne Landing of $17.5 million, that's 26%. And now the following slides go into more details of the taxes. We said it represents 34% of the general fund's revenue. We have ad valorem taxes, or general sales and use tax. That includes our local option gas tax. By the way, this chart compares 2011 actual revenues with what we're estimating in 2012 and what we're proposing for 2013. Then we have our franchise fees, our utility services tax, and our communication services tax. And so for 2013, we have proposed $22.86 million in revenues. Then we have our intergovernmental revenues. These are from the federal, state, and local governments. For federal grants, we have the Bike Path, the COPS, and the Victims of Crime Act grant. We have our state grant, which is right now state aid to libraries. Revenue sharing from the state, and that includes our half-cent sales tax, and grants from other local units and shared revenues. Typically, when we are awarded grants during the year, we usually take these to council for amendment to the budget. And this year, our grants are $6.283 million. Then we have our fines and forfeits. The judgments and fines include our code liens collection programs and our police fines. The code liens collection program was implemented in 2011, and to date we have collected approximately $800,000. Staff is continuing their efforts in 2013. We have our library fines, our code violation citations, and of course other fines or forfeits, which includes our parking fines or can't think of it right, our parking fines and school crossing guard fines, etc. That takes us to our licenses and permits, which make up 2% of the general fund's revenue. Or business tax receipts. Building permits include plumbing, electrical, mechanical, or recertification, and certification of reoccupancy. And we have our other license fees and permits, which include the billboard permits. You will notice that for fiscal year 2013, there's a decrease of $446,000. And this is primarily due to the outsourcing of our building services, as the manager mentioned earlier. Then we have our non-revenues, so named because they're not from external sources. For the interfund transfer, this includes the refund from the CRA, the TIF, Tax Incremental Funding True-Up, as well as a reserve from the solid waste services. Mr. Manager mentioned earlier that we outsourced our solid waste services earlier this year. That fund was an enterprise fund which was collapsed at the end of 2012, and the surplus was transferred into the general fund. So all expenses and revenues are now accounted for in the general fund. So for fiscal year 2013, you will see $3.4 million. That includes the reserve from the Solid Waste Service Fund. We have our enterprise fund contributions. That's transfers for services provided by the general fund, such as accounting services, legal, IT, utility billing services. And then we have our non-operating sources, which is our surplus and our reserves. In fiscal year 2013, there's an amount of $19.8 million. That includes the $17.5 million proceeds from Biscayne Landing, the $17.5 million from Biscayne Landing. Then we have our charges for services. That's our passport application fees, certificate of use fees, minimum housing review fees, liens record searches. For public safety, that is our burglar alarm fees or police record reports, etc. Physical environment. This is our sanitation fees, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that is now in the general fund. And culture and recreation includes the rental of our recreation facilities, revenues from camps and school programs, the use of our swimming pool, tennis program, etc. So this $2.3 million increase from 2012 to 2013 is primarily due to sanitation services, which are now in the general fund. And you will also see this on the expenditure side. The final category is miscellaneous revenues. Includes our interests, or rents and royalties, primarily the lease agreement with Bell South Mobility and the lease payments from the condos at the Oaks, contributions and donations, and also miscellaneous revenues. If you notice in 2012, for rents and royalties, there's $2.2 million in revenues. A portion of this is a $1.5 million land lease. In contributions and donations in 2012, There's also $17.7 million. 17.5 of that is the proceeds from the Biscayne Landing contract. And in miscellaneous revenues, also for 2012, there's $1.5 million. $1 million of that is a reimbursement for the legal fees and maintenance costs associated with the carrying cost of Biscayne Landing. And this next slide summarizes all the categories we just discussed, comparing 2012 amended budget with 2013 proposed budget. Taxes, licenses and permits. There's a reduction there of 11%, and again, this is primarily due to the outsourcing of our building services. We have our intergovernmental revenues, charges for services. Again, this is sanitation revenues, or fines and forfeits. Miscellaneous revenues went down went down 74%, and this is because of the $1.5 million land lease that we received in 2012, which we won't get into 2013. We have the interfund transfers and reserves, that's our non-revenues, increased from $7 million to $28 million, and we know that's a portion of that is the Biscayne Landing 17.5. And then we have our transfers out. So in total, our total general fund revenue increased from $44.6 million to $67.4 million, a 51% increase. And now this is what our general fund budget would look like without the Biscayne Landing proceeds. Instead of the 17.5, you can see the gray shaded area has been taken out, and that's our reserves, which reduced the budget to $49.9 million. So in essence, we have balanced the budget without the Biscayne Landing proceeds. And at $49.9 million, this slide shows you the expenditure. Where does it go? 64% make up our salaries and benefits. 20% is the cost to operate the city, or utilities, contractual services, building maintenance, office expenses. 8% is allocated to our risk management, general liability, and fleet maintenance. 5% is our principal and interest on our pension obligation bond and our contingency. We have our capital outlay, and of course our grants and aids. And this, you can see the expenditure summary by department. It compares 2011 actual expenses to 2012 and to 2013. Typically, you would see an average of about 5-6% increase, and this is due to the 5% salary restoration for all employees. So it should be about 5%. However, in the building department, you see a 35% decrease. This is, as stated earlier, as a result of the outsourcing of our building services, and the manager did mention that with no loss of employees. The city clerk's office went up approximately 35% as a result of the election costs that is budgeted for next year. Non-departmental has a huge percentage change of 12,828%. This is where we have our reserve sitting. Non-departmental is a department that accounts for things that are not specific to any particular department. And again, this is where we have our reserves. $17.5 million in 12.5 in an unappropriated fund, and $5.5 million in reserves for the general fund. And Public Works Department went up 140%. And again, this is our sanitation services now being accounted for in the general fund. And so this is a 51% increase from $44.6 million in 2012 to $67.4 million in 2013. And this next slide gives you an overview of the entire general fund, comparing 2011 amended budget to 2012 and to 2013. And as you can see, 2013, it's $49 million, and the green shaded area is the reserves and unappropriated funds from Biscayne Landing. Now, from $44.6 million to $49 million, you may wonder what contributed to the increase. As we stated earlier, sanitation fund was collapsed and is now in the general fund. There's a 5% salary restoration to all employees. Furlough days have been reduced from 12 to 6. We have some CRA funded projects that are now back into the general fund. The Joe Celestine Community Center is now fully completed and fully staffed. We have the election costs and miscellaneous operating expenses. All of this contributes to the $5 million increase from $44.6 to $49 million for 2013. That ends our general fund, and now we'll move on to the enterprise funds. It's classified as such because these funds operate like a business with one or two sources of income. We have stormwater. That represents 9% of the general fund. We had solid waste first, but it's now been collapsed. Stormwater is from stormwater fees. We have 22% in reserves at this point, and capital outlay, a $500,000 allocation for capital improvement. And then we have our water and sewer, our largest enterprise fund. Earlier this year, we were mandated by South Florida Water Management District under the consumptive use permitting to implement a conservation-based water rate study. This was implemented earlier this year. And at the end of 2012, the capital improvement fee that was implemented a couple years ago for the improvement to our water plant, that fee has been eliminated, and at the end of 2012 there's approximately $10 million in capital improvement funding. And talking about capital, this next slide shows us the projects that staff has proposed for next year. Certain building improvements at the police department, city hall security system. We have the council chambers audio system, improvement to that. Gwen Margolis Community Center facility renovations, as well as the recreation facility security enhancements. All in the general fund. We have one of our grants, the Bike Path Grant. And from our transportation fund, we have improvements to our roadways and medians, sidewalk installation and repairs, street resurfacing. For stormwater, we have $550,000 improvement to our drainage. And in water and sewer, we have the continuing upgrade of our existing lime softening plant, and that includes water line replacements and sanitation sewer rehab. And our total capital outlay for 2013 is $6,000,051. And so, finally, the total budget, 2013 proposed budget, with all the funds combined, is $143,336,524. We have approximately 22 funds, and these are the general fund, which make up 47%, or water and sewer fund. All other funds include landfill closure, the federal forfeiture fund, or law enforcement trust fund, or development impact fees fund. Then we have our 2 internal services fund, which make up 4% of the total general funds budget, and that's our risk and fleet management. We have stormwater. Our transportation funds include gas tax and half-cent surtax. Our housing rehab programs, which include community development block grant, home, and neighborhood stabilization program. And we have our debt service fund and the CRA funded projects that make up the total budget. And then the next slide compares the total budget over the next 3 years, over the last 3 years, sorry. 2011 amended budget was 161,000. 2012 was 151 million. Did I say thousand? And 2013 preliminary budget is, as stated, $143 million, down 5% from the current year. To recap all the points, the very important points made earlier, the proposed millage rate is 8.1000. That is 3.7% less than the current rate. This rate will generate net ad valorem revenues of $15.8 million to the city. The city's general fund budget is $67,434,011. This includes the Biscayne Landing proceeds of $17.5 million. Of this amount, $5 million has been set aside as reserves in the general fund, and the remaining $12.5 unappropriated. Furloughs have been reduced from 12 to 6 days in 2013. And finally, the total combined budget of all the funds for 2013 is $143,336,524. And in closing, although positive signs of economic improvement are visible, the recovery is still expected to be very slow. However, with the support of a loyal community, diligent employees, and the ongoing guidance of our City Council, we remain enthusiastic about the future of our city and committed to the course of progress. Thank you very much.
Mayor, as we pass it on to you, just to bring up a couple of things, I know that it was echoed that the employees be made whole as much as possible. At the last council meeting, we had indicated that there would be a payment. The attorney brought up the correct title would be a payment, a lump sum payment in lieu of COLA. Again, we were able to do that with no objection of the council. That did not get into Biscayne Landing funds. And as you saw here, we are giving the employees a 5% and reducing furlough days. Moving forward, again, all without touching Biscayne Landing money to create a balanced budget. And when we had saw the Gwen Margolis and the capital overlay, that $50,000 we were able to secure contractually from the Alita partners, so that money will come in, but it will go out specifically for that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and thank you, Ms. Grant, for your wonderful presentation on the budget. I know it's been a year since you've been working on this budget, and you finally got it all together at the last minute. Thank you so much for the work that you have done along with your staff, Duke Sorry, who's not only he's getting the benefits of a city employee, but he's also getting the benefits of a city resident, where his water bill has been lowered, property taxes has been lowered. So I'm sure he fought you a lot on that to make sure that he get both of best world. To move on, by law we are required to set the millage rate. Mr. City Clerk, would you read tab A into the record?
Absolutely, Mayor. A resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, adopting a tentative millage rate of 8.1000 mills for fiscal year 2012 through 2013, providing for an effective date and all other purposes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Clerk. Can I get a motion to approve the millage rate that was set at 8.00 has been moved, seconded? Anyone wishes to record or no? Hearing none. Anyone wishes to be heard on tab A, which is the millage rate, has been set at 8.00. My guesstimation, it was initially at 8.4143. As you know, we had a general obligation bond which matured on May 1st, 2012, and that has been satisfied. So at this moment, the millage rate has been reduced to 8.100. If you look at other millage rate around Miami-Dade County, and when taking the millage rate into consideration, you do have to take what they call the general obligation debt. Some cities around town may have a millage rate that is lower than the city of North Miami, but once you take in the debt services, you could tell that the millage rate is higher than the city of North Miami. Although I think at this moment we are the 5th or the 6th largest city in Miami-Dade County, the millage rate, with the reduction that we see at this moment, with the general obligation bond, has been fulfilled. The millage rate right now, we are roughly at number 8, which is a huge reduction and a relief to our residents in the city of North Miami. So motion was made and the millage rate has been adopted. Thank you. Mr. City Clerk, would you read tab B on the first reading of the budget into the record?
An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, adopting and approving the budget of the City of North Miami for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2012 and ending September 30th, 2013, authorizing the amount to be raised by taxation for the operation of the city for the 2012-2013 fiscal year, authorizing the expenditure of funds established by the budget, authorizing a return of investment transfer from the Water and Sewer Utility Fund to the General Fund, authorizing the city manager to implement budget amendments, revenue and or expenditures, to appropriate or unappropriate funds as required during the fiscal year, and to amend the prior fiscal year budget to facilitate the year-end closing process, providing for repeal, severability, and an effective date.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. City Clerk. Just to be clear, this is the first reading of the budget. To begin with, the $17.5 million that we received from as a result of negotiating a contract with the developer for Biscayne Landing, that $17.5 million is not part of this budget, although according to the budget department, it has to be included somewhere. It has to be accounted in some place. The city council, maybe 2 months ago, to an ordinance, basically put $5 million on the side as reserve. So at this moment, there are $12.5 million of that Biscayne money that is sitting there. It's not part of this budget. It's not being discussed at this moment. Yes, there will be a meeting. There will be a time where we'll talk about that $12.5 million, but it's not part of this budget. That $12.5 million is sitting someplace waiting for the city council to make a decision based on that. I'm going to open public hearing on tab B, which is the first reading of our 2012-2013 budget.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens, city employees, mostly in the audience tonight. Joe Haber, 2096 Alameda Drive. I think it's incredible that you guys managed to balance the budget without the Biscayne Landing money. I mean, that's awesome. The millage rate decrease is a sign that things are getting better in our city, and the buyback of the furloughs, raising the pay of the city employees, these are things that are super important to us. Balancing that budget without the Biscayne Landing money is fantastic. I just would urge the Mayor, Council, in your infinite wisdom and power, that you do everything that you can to live off of the interest of the $17.5 million. And if you need to spend the money, try to keep it to 1/5 of the $12.5 million a year for 5 years. That way we can stretch it out and we can make it last the 5 years it's supposed to, because it's a payment for 5 years' rent. Other than that, everything looks great, and thank you very much for all of your hard work. To all the city staff and everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haber. Anyone else wishes to be heard? This is the first reading of the 2012-2013 budget. Okay, hearing none. Public hearing is now closed on tab B, which is the budget for 2012-2013. You will have an opportunity at the second budget hearing to have additional inputs once we have heard what this council has to add to this budget. Councilman Galvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a lot of questions, but I'll try to get through them very quickly. I'd like to first make a request. Hopefully it can be something you can provide me with within the next week, ahead of the second budget hearing, a list of any and all additions to this year's budget that are new, and a list of anything that's increased over last year. So if, I don't know, Parks Program B got another $5,000, that we see that got $5,000. Looking to see with our better bottom line where we've applied the budget. This is a great document. You all spend a lot of time putting it together, but for historical purposes, I'm never able to compare it to what we did the year before to see if we like where we're increasing the spending. So I hope that that's something that we can, that you are able to provide me in about a week from now. Secondly, the Biscayne Landing money. When are we going to decide what happens with that money?
That's up to the city council. I mean, if you guys want to make that decision now, I don't think it's really up to staff. That money is sitting there. The council have to make that decision. I was hoping that tomorrow at regular city council meeting, if there is a plan to put a date to discuss it, it would be on a city agenda item to discuss that money. So,
okay.
But it's up to the city council to make the decision when it's going to be discussed and what we're going to do with it. All
right, I agree with you there. You've made reference to making the employees whole with a 5% increase. How I just heard you say that there might be some lump sum up front, and I've heard at other points talking about phasing it in over 3 years. What is the plan right now for that 5% increase? Somebody asked me at the gym the other day.
Yeah, Councilman, at the last council meeting, I did bring up the fact that in this current budget year, that we are, unless there was an objection to the council, and at that time last council meeting it wasn't, but basically what we're doing is giving the employees a payment in lieu of COLA. COLA is cost of living increase.
Right.
So what we were able to do was calculate that COLA over a 2-year period. There is a lump sum payment that is scheduled to go out this fiscal year for this fiscal budget.
Okay.
Okay. So that was at the request. I know Councilman Bland had made mention of it, and we moved forward to do that. Again, that is out of this year's budget, and it has nothing to do with Biscayne Landing.
Right.
And we're still able to move over $1 million into next year, which is a part of next year's. It's been absorbed at 1.3. This year, also, what we're doing is giving the employees back. We're attempting to negotiate with the unions, but the union, we do have scheduled for all employees, including the union, to give a 5% increase in pay, as well as to reduce the amount of furloughs we have
Right, from 12 to 6. I heard
from
that, right.
12 to 6. We may take 6, we may not take any,
Right.
but basically we won't take no more than 6.
So the 5% that they're going to get, are they getting it this year, one-time bang, or are they getting it over a period of 2 years?
It would be, it's one-time payment.
Okay, and so
That's a one-time payment.
all employees, whether union or non-union, can expect a 5% bonus.
Check.
Yes.
Okay.
There'd be well, we have it for union. We're just trying to negotiate that settlement.
Okay.
But we did reserve the funds.
Okay.
There are employees who are not in the union, so I do not intend to hold them back.
Right.
Because we're negotiating with the union.
Yeah, and I think that's a good decision because it should be applied evenly. I'm
Evenly.
Not looking to,
So that would be given in a one-time check over the past 2-year period.
Okay, so everybody's going to get a big fat check sometime before the end of September. So to
Correct.
speak. Okay. Hey, buddy.
Again, unless mayor and council has an objection to that, there was none last week.
Yeah, no.
It's not.
Actually,
Yes, in lieu of COLA.
It's not for past performance. It's in lieu of a cost of living increase, which we want.
Thank you for that legalese to make sure we.
That's why I'm here.
No, but
keep in mind, it's not everybody. The city council is not included. The city council have to make their own decision on that.
Yes, Mayor.
The city manager is not included. The city attorney, I'm not sure if the city attorney is included.
Well,
So-
I would have to correct you on that unless you object, but the reason why I say that, Mayor, just so that
you mean for the
understand.
city manager or for the city council?
Well, no, because I have a contract, but I did take furlough days. But those furlough days did reduce my contract pay. So
Okay.
therefore, I'm not asking you for approval for anything. It's just my regular pay.
Okay.
But I did take a furlough day along with the other employees.
Okay.
And so did the city attorney.
Okay. So only the city council is not included.
not included.
The
Yeah,
only this-
my question was really
Okay.
for the rank and file guys.
Yes.
Because literally, somebody asked me at the gym, and I didn't know how to answer how it would be applied. I told them I knew it was coming. I just didn't know if it was going to be one time, over 2 years, over 3 years. So now I know next Saturday morning when I'm in the gym how to
Sure.
answer that question. All right, thank
and
you.
so, and the 5% will be effective October the 1st in this budget.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Let me bump through some of the other questions I have.
And I mean, if it will help, it would help staff to know if mayor and councilman is looking for the 5% back retroactively that you lost as well over the past 2 years.
To be honest, that hadn't even occurred to me. So I'm only asking the question for the rank and file.
Okay.
That's my question. So
And-
I'm not looking for anything else.
But
okay.
I think your question, the decision has to be made, yes
The
or no.
decision has to be yes or no, and the decision has to be made as well as putting you back where you were effective October 1st, 2 years ago. So if we know that tonight, it would help us to make that amendment accordingly for the next council meeting.
For the next budget hearing.
Because mayor and council, everyone had took that 5% reduction.
I'm not making that motion. If somebody else wants to under their section, they certainly can, but I'm not. All right, let me fly through some of these others because I want to try to make it quick. Monday Night Football tonight. On the income, I'm starting with the income and then I'll talk about how we're spending it. On the income, we show under Parks and Recreation that revenue from North Miami Athletic Stadium rental will be approximately $55,000. I thought we were no longer renting that facility. How is that?
Are you
Explain that
talking
to me.
about where the FIU stadium is?
Right. It says athletic stadium rental
Sure.
revenue. That I assume that's
we,
what.
We are renting that.
Okay, we are still.
We
renting.
have always rented that facility out,
Okay.
and we will continue to rent it out.
Okay. So we didn't stop rentals. We just changed the parameters under which one rents or under which one is using it for free or.
No, I think there's a misconception. The stadium, if we allow someone to use the stadium, we would not, renting the stadium supersedes everybody. And that's always been the case. It supersedes everyone. If there's someone that wants to, a nonprofit or a group that wants to use the stadium, my understanding, just one second. The FIU stadium is 95,000.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the projected revenue.
All right. That's
The
a lot
other
of revenue.
facilities are 55,
Okay.
but it's 95.
Well, these pages aren't numbered, and that's one
Okay,
drawback that I wish I could tell you.
it's on page 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. I all need to get reading glasses. I'm gonna one day give in to the vanity. Okay, page 4. I'm
Yes.
seeing. Oh, I didn't follow it over. Okay, I
Yeah.
followed it
So
over.
the projected revenue is
95.
95,000.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I know, laugh at me. I'm
Irregardless-
getting old.
Irregardless of, if someone comes to me and wants to use the stadium, a kickball group, if they are open to the general public as well, we have in the past allowed people to use it. But if someone wants to rent it exclusively, then everything goes and they use it exclusively. For instance, we've had cases where there's a football game. They can't play that football game at another location.
Right.
We automatically will stop the use of that facility and let the school board rent it out.
Right.
So rentals supersede everything. It always has, it will continue to be. So our projected revenue is $95,000.
Okay. I hope we're not making 95 grand off of Alonzo Mourning and North Miami High's back. That obviously they can't have their facility, their event open to the public because then they lose the gate revenue and other. But
That's an interlocal agreement
okay.
that we have with them.
But if Bob Jones wants to come in and, like you said, play kickball, as long as we're making it known to everybody who steps forward, if you have this open to the public, you can get it for free. I'm cool with that. I just don't want us to not let that little benefit be known if somebody walks in, because it's just sort of just.
But for the schools, they always can use it because we have that interlocal agreement. We don't charge them, right?
No, we charge them. It's upwards of $2,000 a game for each high
Well,
school.
for the various football games, some of the schools are not North Miami schools,
Right.
or they're part of that athletic program. We do charge on
Right.
that.
Right. There's a slight
but
discount. If
Alonzo
you're-
Mourning, I don't.
we charge North Miami High and
Ye-
Alonzo Mourning High.
Right,
Trust
but
me,
that's,
I-
yeah, we do, but that's based on the interlocal agreement because of the wear and tear, because the school board is using it every day.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
And-
For example, every morning I see the students are running around the track and doing PE. They're out there. Do we charge them for that?
yes,
Do
we charge on that because of the wear and tear. So
Okay.
they get to use the field. If there's anything that takes place, we repair it.
Okay.
But I'm not asking at this moment for a $95,000 breakdown of where that comes from, but I'm just saying overall, if it's all coming from our school kids and everybody else is using it for free, I'm not happy with that, just because that's putting too much onus on the kids and the schools, which work hard to come up with that money. I mean, North Miami High used to get 5,000 persons a game when I was in high school 25 years ago. Now I read that the attendance at one of their games last weekend was 300. So they have to work hard to raise some money to get bodies in the and then if it's all just going straight to us and we're giving it free to everybody else in the community, that's what I'm hoping we're not doing. So if we're making 95 grand off of this stadium this next fiscal year, I hope that that's nicely balanced between members of the community and the schools, because if it's all the schools, that's just not fair to the schools, my opinion. That's why I was asking the question.
I agree. We should make it free to the schools. You know, I agree 100% with that. You know, there's no reason why we should be charging North Miami Senior High School. We shouldn't be charging Alonzo and Tracy Morning to use the field. To begin with, we got a state grant, you know, from the government to build that, you know, to build that field. So, you know, it wasn't supposed to be a money making in the first place. So, if we are charging, I agree. I mean, the parks should be open to the public. I mean, there's no parks that should be closed, and on the, you know, the powerful and the connected can use it. It should be open to the public, and it should be open to the schools.
Mayor, we do have it open for the public, but there are a lot of people that do come and rent it, whether it's for a soccer game, kickball game, whatever track meets. We charge individuals for that because they want exclusive use of that facility. At times, they charge at the gate.
Right, but that's what the councilman is saying.
Sure.
If they want exclusive use, that's no problem. But if the school wants to use it, and we shouldn't be charging the school to use it for free. I see Mr. Guymer is here. Are we saying something totally different here? Are the schools being charged?
Good evening, Jeff Guymer, Director of Parks and Recreation. I just want to clarify. We do charge for use for the football games, and what we do charge, and you passed about 8 months ago a reduced fee for the 2 local high schools. For the football games, we charge each of them $1,000, and that basically covers staff costs, cleanup afterwards, and it covers our electrical use. We break even on that. For the non-North Miami high schools, they pay $1,300 per event. And what they do is they charge at the gate, and it helps, and they charge concessions, and it helps make up the costs that are associated with that. I know that one of the members of the PTA at Alonzo and Tracy Morning had requested a fee waiver, and that's why we did propose a fee waiver to you all, and it was adopted. So they pay $300 less per event. When they come out, they rent the fields for soccer games as well. When they have their varsity high school games out there, we do not charge the local high schools for those. We do charge for the football just because of the manpower and the additional cleanup that's required after those games. Now, per school, they have 5 or 6 home games a year, so that works out to $5,000 to $6,000 for each school. Now, when you have your other schools that come in and use it as a home field as well, we have about 32 to 34 rentals a year for football games. So that brings in about $40,000 of the $95,000 in revenue you're talking about.
So about half of that money is coming from the school. A little bit less than half is coming from the school.
Yes, but
the other half is coming from members of the general public?
Dead rentals, yes.
And do we tell them up front that if they'll be open to the public for their event, they could use it for free?
No, and the policy is that they don't get full use of the full field. We established a new policy where if they want to use a portion of the field, then we'll go ahead and allow that to be used for free. But if a group wants to come in and use the entire field, we tell them that they need to rent the facility out. We did upgrade that policy about a year ago.
Okay.
But we're getting the PE hours. Why we charge them for that PE hours?
We have an interlocal agreement basically with the schools, with North Miami for use of Cagney Park, with Alonzo and Tracy Morning for use of the track and field. The uses that go along with those fields, as the manager pointed out, for the general wear and tear. The costs associated with Alonzo and Tracy Morning using the stadium are a little bit less than the costs of North Miami utilizing Cagney Park, because you have a synthetic turf field opposed to a grass field. The grass field requires a lot more maintenance as you go along, so the costs are a little bit higher to maintain. But through the interlocal agreement, the schools agreed to pay 50% of the costs associated with the maintenance of those facilities. And that's from the school board. Those were the agreements that were settled on, 6 years ago or 8 years ago, depending on how long that agreement was when we did the land transfer with Cagney Park. You have to remember that part of that deal was the number of things that we gave up as part of the process, especially with Cagney Park. So they're paying for half of the maintenance associated with that. And then when we redevelop the other part of the park on 135th and Northeast 8th Avenue. On the north side, there's going to be a maintenance agreement that goes along with that as well, which has already been agreed to in the interlocal agreements.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll quit. I promise they're not all going to take that long to answer, but thank you very much. Page 6 of our income mentions the CRA projects. When are we going to set our CRA budget meetings?
They will be set this week. I directed Aldwin and Mr. Pradhan, along with Mr. Zelkowitz, to provide dates to council for this week.
Okay. Are they going to check with us, or are they just going to set dates?
We're checking. We're going to check.
Okay, cool. Yeah, please check.
Meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, we have a regular CRA
I think it's a
board
regular
meeting
CRA,
tomorrow.
but not for the budget.
For the
No,
budget.
I understand, but can we actually set the date like tomorrow?
Well, we wanted to give you proper notice. I can give you, we're looking at next week, Monday,
Right,
or Tuesday before.
I have a couple of family commitments on the upcoming Thursdays, so
Okay.
I just would hope we don't do that. I don't like making my mom upset with me. All right, now I'm jumping to expenditures. Page 64. We've got a lot, and this is just a recurring thing through the budget. We've got a lot of forums, we've got a lot of national leagues, we've got a lot of events. If it is necessary for somebody to retain their certification, well, I'm looking at page 64 in the, now it's the expenditures. It's listed under the city manager's budget. But I just use this example first because it's the first one that jumps up in the budget. It's in several different departments. There are lots of conferences that we could possibly attend. Obviously, in my opinion, if somebody has to attend a conference to keep their certification current, I think we should keep it there. But if it's a non-necessary event, conference, I think we should take that out of the budget. For instance, there's $15,000 worth of conferences included under the city manager's section of the budget. Again, Mr. Manager, I'm not singling you out. Please don't think that. I'm just using you because you popped up first. It's there under the council. It's there under other departments. It would be my hope to the rest of the council, we might save ourselves $15,000 if we eliminate conferences that we don't need to attend and only keep those conferences in place that staff absolutely needs to attend to keep certification current. But I don't know which is which. So if there's any way to delineate that for me, please, between now and the next meeting, I'd be very thankful, because I don't know which of these conferences are just sort of fun things to go to and which ones are necessary to go to.
Councilman, in regards to conferences, some are certifications and some are educational conferences.
Right.
In the past 2 years, there have really been basically no conferences.
Right.
I would like to see city staff attend conferences. I think they're great educational
Agreed.
tools. They are
Agreed.
career developments. I looked at the ones that either myself or other members of staff will attend, because I think we're losing a lot by not attending conferences. We had the availability or the strength in the budget to do so. So I did ask that certain departments, as much as possible, allow for conferences, allow for certifications and educational conferences. It makes us better staff. It makes us well-rounded. So I will go whatever direction you all are directing us to do, but I just feel that they are very educational and some are certifications. Some certifications are not necessarily required that we do our job, but they're certifications that is as good as we as a city have as a whole.
May I ask then, by next meeting, for a breakdown on which ones are educational and which ones are for certification? That's all I'm asking. I
Sure.
understand in
I will
lean
provide
times
that to
we
you.
scaled it way back. I'm afraid we're jumping very fast forward with there's a lot of conferences in here. And it's nice that we've got the Biscayne Landing money. It's nice that things seem to be turning around. I'm afraid we're going to go hog wild and money will be gone and we're going to go, you know, and $15,000 in this department, $15,000 in that department, $10,000, that adds up to a little something when we're in need later on. So I'm just looking for a breakdown on which is certification and which one are educational, and maybe we can strike a fine balance. I totally agree. I can't tell you the number of things I've been to over the years, even professionally with my job, that I learn so much when I can go to a different place and interact with other professionals. But I just don't want us to be feasting like we're, you know, the fatted calf right now. So,
but just keep in mind, this budget is not balanced off of Biscayne Landing funding.
No, I know that.
Okay.
But I just mentioned that in the same breath
Okay.
because it's the same sort of idea that now that things are turning around for us, let's make sure we're still keeping a conservative approach as opposed to a
Sure.
So,
and we'll indicate that.
Okay, thank you. 8, governmental affairs manager. Has that person been hired?
No.
Okay. Will that be advertised?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And that may not be the salary.
It's up to.
That, well, yes. Well, that was the current salary of the budget manager, governmental affairs manager. That was the current salary.
Was that, I hate to use names, was that Miguel?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're going to re-advertise Miguel's position?
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. Page 74, public relations. I know who our public information officer is, but who's our public information specialist?
We do not have one. I will be opening that position up.
Okay. So this is why I'm starting to ask for a listing of what's in addition to this year's budget versus last year's, because here's a brand new position for $46,000. I'd like us to have a little bit of discussion as to whether or not we need somebody in addition to Pam. Sorry, Pam, I just used your name. All right. One of the concerns I have overall with the budget, and maybe it's just sometimes when you do a good thing, it can have unintended consequences. And the budget department has been very helpful in giving us this sort of pie chart over how we spend our money. But it spooked me. I saw it in the presentation that I went to a Griffin the other night. It spooked me that of all the money we spend, of the $49 million budget we have, 64% goes to personnel services and another 20% goes to operating costs. In other words, 80-something% of all our taxpayer money basically stays right inside this building because it's going to staff and it's going to, costs of, utilities and things like that. And so under the library's budget.
Can I make a correction to that, Council?
Sure.
Yes. That is the percentage of the general fund. The general fund is $49 million.
Right.
Our entire budget is $143 million. So the presentation that you saw was the operating costs and the personnel coming from the general fund, which is $49 million.
Right.
I will say that last year it was personnel was 70%. This year we reduced it to 64%.
Okay. And see, that's a good thing to know. Again, last year versus this year, we don't have any perspective with these charts. It's good that then we are reducing it, but I'm still concerned that that great a percentage of the pie is going to personnel, pensions, overtime, etc. That's a lot of the money that comes into the city staying right here within. In other words, are we top heavy? Do we have too many staff members? I don't know. I'm not here to answer that question tonight, but here's why I ask it. Applying it to the library budget, other than a couple of $100 here or there, I don't see any monies for new books for the library, magazines for the library, upgrading our subscriptions at the library. Almost everything in the library budget is related to somebody's salary, somebody's benefits, somebody's pensions. And page 156 talks about $946 for items needed for library functions. There's another $700 in there somewhere. Do we have monies? And when I did my budget town hall meeting a month ago or so, the Friends of the Library had the room stacked. There are a lot of people asking for programs for the library. Obviously, it's right near to the two schools. When kids get out, that's one of the places they can go to sort of hang. Do we have money in this budget to provide for new books, new subscriptions, and programming at the library?
We are looking for state aid funding for that, and we on tomorrow night's agenda, we do have it on there for council approval to proceed with the grant application to get that funding. We are expecting the neighborhood of about $20,000 to $30,000 for that. So that would help the library. So it's not in the budget because we are seeking for funding on that. And in regards to the police, a lot of that in the budget presentation is pension. The police department is our largest by far. And that's the service that we need. So when you look at that entire budget, when it looks at personnel costs, that's where the majority of that comes from,
Right.
along with the pension costs and what have you. So we are trying to work more efficiently and effectively, for instance, by outsourcing the building department. Those employees will be absorbed as time goes on. When people retire, we will start looking closely at positions. And also, wherever we can put a part-time person at, we would do that as well, because that's not adding to the pension and to the overall impact.
Right. Well, and now, I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
McCarthy.
What about the work so far you have done with your IT department at the library, and also what will be done, in the future? And I think Biscayne Lending initially was supposedly to do our library. So I think that's, and I think, so far the people that I have spoken to about this Biscayne Lending funding, they constantly talk about, don't forget, the library. So I think, once we get into the discussion of Biscayne Lending, the library is on the top of my list. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that our IT department, because of grant money, we went in there and transformed every computer. It's been updated. And we have a new system now to deal with tracking book and book rentals. Now, although we upgraded the system, our fines have been reduced because upgrading the system brings in less money, because there's ways how people can quicker, more effectively and efficiently, it worked out for the general public. So we're getting less money in fines.
Right.
But overall, the service and the impact of the library has escalated because of that.
Right.
So sometimes things we do will, by default, bring in less money, and that's okay, but we'll still continue to seek funds to enhance those services. So overall, the services at the library have been enhanced. Better computers, now they have free Wi-Fi. So we are working to improve and enhance the services at the library.
And that just sort of ties back into my feelings on the conferences and the things in the last part I brought up. If we can save $10,000 per department on conferences and transfer that to the library for more books and stuff for the kids and the public, that's where I want to be spending the money. Because again, we are very heavy on salary-related stuff within the monies within this building. I want to take the money out to the field, out to the people. That's why I'm bringing that up. Next question, page 197. And I'm not going to mention the individual's name because, again, this is just the first time it popped up, and there are lots of different recurrences of this in here. Number 148 mentions retiree group health insurance. In this case, it's $11,100 for one individual. That individual left our employ 15 years ago. How is it that we're still paying for that employee's insurance this late?
Yeah, Councilman.
it's a legal question. Remember what happened with the issues of people that retired, have to work for so many years and we continue to pay the insurance. Would you answer that legal question?
Wasn't this contracted?
Yes.
Or
Yes, it was
part of the
contracted.
yeah,
Right.
so I
But
mean,
every year that question keep popping up, it's in the
Every
budget.
year.
So can you guys,
Are they
we still-
vested? Is that what it was?
Yeah, when people are vested, certain positions, we will continue to pay their insurance. For city manager, like we're still paying for Mr. Lee Feldman's.
I'm not bringing up anybody's name.
Well, there's retired chiefs.
Right.
We're still paying for that. It's the way it's set up that any director that has been with the city for
X number of
X
years.
number of years, we continue to pay for
Okay.
that.
I was just making sure because that just jumped out at me, and I stand corrected on the mayor's statement. He's right. Page 200, maintenance contract on Biscayne Landing, $125,000. What is that?
That is for the current contract that we have at Biscayne Landing that was approved by council. That's the property management contract.
But that was only until Biscayne Landing, or in this case, Alita Partners, took over. It was not a permanent thing going forward. It was a stopgap until we found somebody to run the property. If we're paying, well, so to speak, if we're giving great rights to Mr. Swerdlow to run Biscayne Landing, why do we need to spend another $125,000 for any individual to serve as the property manager?
On that particular contract, we contractually decided that we felt that it would be in the best interest of the city to have someone be a liaison person to ensure that certain things were done compliant-wise, certain things were done contractually, sort of like an overseer. All of the monitoring issues that needs to go place for the next 10 years. There's also certain obligations that we have to do dealing with the grant money. We wanted to make sure that that took place with having someone there, and we put those things in our contract because there are reporting requirements that we have to report for that grant, and we have to give it to all of the other reporting agencies. What I'm doing now is giving this stuff to the Office of Inspector General quarterly. Those documents will be compiled. We can't just take the developer's word that these things are being done. One of the issues in the OIG report is that there was no oversight by the city. There was no documentation that we could produce to them, if you remember that OIG report. So this is what this contract is for.
Okay. Madam City Attorney, I don't recall at this moment whether that was a resolution that we approved that it created this position or whether it was just a standalone item. Do you remember?
I believe that was bid out, right?
Yes, that was bid out, but we are.
It was for a period certain, though.
It is, and we are bringing it to council.
I'd like to take this out of the budget until that's approved, and if you need to bring it to us before the second budget hearing or something like that, I'm not comfortable paying for duplicative services at the tune of $125,000. It was one thing when we had nobody out there, when nobody was in control, when it was just sort of never land. It was one thing to bring somebody in to sort of manage things until Mr. Swerdlow took over. But if Mr. Swerdlow needs somebody to manage that property, he can pick up $125,000 of payment. I don't think that our taxpayers should be the ones to do that. And if we are going to do that, I think we need to do it by the book. If it was a resolution, we need to extend the resolution, and I know it was a time certain bid out, we need to rebid it for an additional time.
If I can just ask, I did ask Ms. Johnson to prepare a resolution for council to bring that before council. If she can tell me when that is coming up. I don't know if she's here. She's not here. But I did direct her last week to bring this as a resolution to council for council approval. However, I understand what you're saying on the developer's end. The city.
But Mr. Manager, what you want to do is to bring the information in when there was no one on that site, how much money we lost there, A lot of stuff that went unchecked. In fact, they were dumping garbage there. There are monies that we never collected on that site as a result of you not having anybody there. So, yes, it's $125,000, but bring the information that we collected about $1 million as a result of having a property manager there. Okay,
Yes, and
so
that's the
just-
city side.
Right, that's the city side. So bring that information in, because a lot of times, we are saying that let's cut here, let's take out this, but at the same time, we getting killed on the other side.
Yeah.
So if we're bringing in $1 million and we are maintaining that property, and remember, Michael Swerdlow and his group, they are not our partners. Okay, I mean their interest will continue to be their interest.
That's right.
To make as much as they can. So we need somebody to watch our property. I don't care who that manager is. I don't care who it is. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But I think, we need someone to be watching that site. It's 185 acres, work to be done on that property. So I'm not, going to vote to say, hey, let's give it to Michael Swerdlow and let him do whatever he wants with it. In fact, as a result of having that property manager there, we just collected what, $200,000 or $300,000 from the Oaks. How much was it? Was it $1 million?
we collected 600, but there was work being done at the Oaks.
Yeah,
that
work's being done
are-
illegally, which you caught.
Right.
Dumping on that site, which you caught. So just bring that information in so we'll know exactly what it is. And I don't care who the manager is. We could bid it out, and whomever get the contract, I have no problem with that. But basically, I definitely want someone to be on that site to be watching what's going on there.
Yeah, and I can agree with the mayor that there should be somebody on staff. I hear where he's coming from. There should be somebody out there representing our interest that's there. $125,000 is more than some department heads make, I think. So that's a lot of money to sort of watch a relatively inactive piece of land. Maybe we could get it for a better price. Maybe it's rebidding it that's the answer. I don't know, but that just jumped out at me when I see $125,000 for Biscayne Landing management.
I believe the matter's coming before council on September 25th or whatever date you designate for the next hearing.
And in what format is it coming to us? As a recommended
it was,
contract?
yeah,
fee
correct.
approval?
It was bid out.
I'd like to. It hasn't been rebid because it hasn't been advertised if it's been rebid.
No.
Oh, no, I
Okay.
believe it's an extension of the contract.
Okay,
The original contract was bid out and so
Can
forth.
we
and now-
rebid that? Can we rebid that because we could potentially get a better price?
Oh,
The extension of a contract at the same level, we can get a better price.
Respectfully, Council, through the mayor, if we could take that recommendation on the 25th, how you want us to proceed and handle
Can you
that.
change that discussion, that item on the 25th to a discussion item then? Because otherwise we're voting on something.
If you like, we can change it to a discussion item.
I'd be more comfortable with that, please. All right, I'm almost to the end now. On page 202, line 820, these are non-departmental grants to others, money that we give into other organizations. There's $50,000 for adult continuing education. Is that the Biscayne Landing provision for continuing education?
No.
What is that then?
That is a grant through the request of the high school, night school. Basically, they lost funding. Well, there's no funding. When we did the budget workshop, this was an issue and a concern that came up from the community. The school board is now charging which was free. Now they're charging. So what we were proposing is for North Miami residents who are adults who will be going to the night school receive the cost of that tuition. So now there's a tuition where before there was not a tuition.
So this is a request of the Miami-Dade County School Board for this
No,
money?
This came from the community, from the community involvement and having input of what they would like to see. So it's a proposal.
Who would collect and disperse said money?
Well, basically, we would coordinate with the principal at the high school that we would track who are North Miami residents through the application process, and then there's a fee that would be paid. I believe the fee that they charge now is
Right.
$35.
It will go directly to the school board.
It would go directly
okay?
to the school board.
Basically,
That's who it goes to.
what
yeah.
the school board is doing now, the people that live in the city of North Miami that either cannot go to college or cannot get a GED or wants to learn English at North Miami Adult Education, the school board is charging them. Okay, and I think admission went from 5,000 to 3,000 students as a result of this additional course that the residents have to pay. Although it's 5,000 residents at one point, but not all of them are North Miami residents, but a lot of them are North Miami residents because the school is right there in North Miami. So during the budget workshops in both sessions, Councilman Blinn was there when the request was made from a couple people that talked about it. Basically said we lost a lot of students. Some of our friends used to be able to go to school there to learn English, and they cannot do it anymore because they cannot afford the fee that is being charged by Miami-Dade County School Board. The second budget workshop on Thursday at Sunkist Grove, a lot of people were there, and the same request was made again. So basically, all we're doing is, we were advised maybe there's 1,000 or a couple thousand of North Miami residents that actually go to school there, and the school board said, hey, if the city wants to pay for those residents that otherwise would not have been able to go to school, that's no problem, and they have to cut the check directly to the school board, and North Miami residents will be able to, whether they are learning English, whether they dare to get some kind of training, and the request came from students and teachers that were at those budget workshops.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the explanation. Now, a related question. I'm jumping into, I guess, the soft-bound book that you gave us. We've got two different books that I'm working from. Again, non-departmental grants to others, correlating between the fiscal year 2012 amended budget and the actual budget. We apparently were $69,000 over budget in what we expected to give to non-departmental grants. Am I reading that correctly? It's page 93 of the soft-bound book. Looks like we were estimating we'd be at $140,500, and in actuality, we were at 2009. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that means we were $69,000 over budget this year on non-departmental grants to others. Who got that extra $69,000, and where did we come up with it?
While Ms. Grant is looking to who got that money, we got the money in any over expenditure from unexpected revenue. As I indicated before, when we started the budget year off, we were in the red. As we went through the budget year, we were able to recoup, and we named several areas of how we were able to recoup that $5.8 million. And that comes from either unexpected revenue that we generated. I'll give you an example. $600,000 came in from the Oaks. In the past years, that was never collected. We never went after it. We just kind of let it go. This year, we went after it. Another example is Bank of America. We did a settlement with them for $100,000. Those are unexpected revenue that was not projected throughout the year. And other areas where there was revenue projected, whatever we projected, we brought in more money than what was anticipated. So in areas like that, there were other grants that went out at council approval. And I'll give you an example. For instance, the DREAM Act, there was $10,000 that was requested by council. That's one source of funding that went to that location. There were other areas where when we were doing the CBO grants, I think we put extra money there. So it was areas like that that came from council's direction that accommodated that 69,000.
Okay.
We will get that funding for you.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor the night by having her pull it up and
we
read
will,
it off.
We will get that for
Give
you.
it to me later.
But that's
cool.
just an example.
Yeah.
I think that was the latest one that I remember was the $10,000.
Cool. All right.
There was other grants. I think we approved 3,000 one time through Councilman Marcellus. Councilman Blinn made a request that we gave money to.
$5,000.
5,000 to one agency. So these are all ones that came from mayor and council throughout that year.
Okay. Let me make this my last one, and I have other questions. I'll save them for in between now and the next meeting and at the next meeting, so I don't.
And I have the list of them here.
Yeah, give them to me later. 'Cause
Sure.
okay. We got time. I don't want to make.
Sure.
We'll add another 10 minutes here. Honestly, I'm trying to get out, but this is my last one for tonight. On page 248, again of the hardbound edition, 3-ring binder, we've got $900 for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. Have we received a request from them to have an event?
I believe so. And when I say that is because this is under Parks and this is annual. So
Right.
I don't think this was a change from last year.
Now,
This
that's a
is annual.
nonprofit organization, but I noticed there's a for-profit organization in here twice. The Diaspora Cup, the soccer game. This is an issue every November when they rise up like the weekend before their soccer tournament and say, we forgot to ask you for money this year. We're a for-profit business, but will you waive all of our fees? And we do, and they go on and they have their event, et cetera, et cetera. Can we proactively reach out to them this year and say, are you guys having an event? Because this is $1,600, $1,700 to
Sure.
a for-profit organization that charges at the door for revenue that's coming. I mean, it's one thing if you're giving some freebies to the American Cancer Society as a nonprofit, but it's another thing to me when we're giving freebies to for-profits. And can we just make sure that we get the headache out of the way and not wait till November 20th for their November 27th Diaspora Cup event, please?
We do as best as possible, Council. Again, the ones that have been consistently coming before Mayor and Council, we did proactively reach out. These costs are for staff.
Right.
Because when we do help and partner, there's a cost for staff and overtime and cleanup and setup. So that's what that's for. This is not a grant that will go to them in their pocket.
Right.
This is for staff for the cost of that.
I just have a continuing concern with providing anything to a for-profit business that comes from the taxpayers. Why should the taxpayers be underwriting a for-profit business for any business, especially when they always come to us the last week before they do? I mean, if they can't be here at the next council meeting to me, the next budget meeting, and tell us they're doing it and lay out some details, I would take this part out. Now, again, it's only $1,700, but it's the point of the whole thing because every single year, it's got to be 4 years at least, it's happened to us. And we've always given in and we've been, helpful, but I just looking for one less headache from them this year if we can help it. So that's all I've got for tonight,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting me have so much time.
You're welcome. Jasper Cup been doing this for over 6 years in the city of North Miami, not just 4 years. Every single year, we always waive the fees for them. So the $1,700, that money that actually give it to them, it's a waiving of the fees. Councilman Marcellus?
I remember last year, before this time, it was a trouble for most of us. And I remember I went to Kay's office and with the city managers and tried to be involved in every details about the budget because it was a concern for everyone. But this year, it was different. I didn't have to go up there. I didn't have to call Kay and call the city manager and call Mr. Sorry and just to find out how we're going to balance the budget, not lay off anybody. And this year, I think we make a big accomplishment by balancing our budget without lay off anybody, and then without touching the $17.5 million from Biscayne Landing and plus the surplus. My goodness, that was very good. I read this budget, and I went over every single line item, line by line, and I'm still going over it just to find out anything that I believe that I have to have some probably hard questions, and like Councilman Galvin does. But so far, I'm comfortable with it. And the only thing I can say to you guys, Mr. City Manager, congratulations. And Kay and Surrey, I think you did a tremendous work. And continue with that work. I expect next year and the year after next, we can be in the same situation that we are today. And I probably have some questions for the second budget hearing. But for now, I might say good job. And I'm proud of every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marsalis, for being so brief. You know, let's give him a round of applause, man. That was 30 seconds. That's great. That's great. Pastor Jack, we're gonna be able to get out of here quickly, so we could make it to get some Haitian rum.
Pastor Jack,
Councilman Len.
My fellow citizens, thank you for being here this evening.
Okay.
Although most of you probably work for the city. Anyway, we're here for the general welfare and the health and the safety of this city. And this budget makes money and loses money, but the final analysis is that we try to maximize the benefit of the city citizens with the budget. One of the things that I've been brought to my attention is the Sunday hours of the library, which is only 4 hours. Citizens have asked it to be extended to 8 hours, from 10 to 6 o'clock.
Council,
is that economically feasible?
Yeah, Councilman, the reason why we were able to open up our library on Sundays, it was because of grant funding. So we are seeking that grant funding again, and based upon how much that grant is, it would dictate the hours of operation. But that is our goal, is to leave it open on Sundays as many hours as the grant will provide.
Well, as many citizens who get up late on Sunday would still like to go to the library from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We have new computers in there. I've been by this library a number of times, and they're used almost every minute of the day. And the only time most people have, because many people work 6 days a week, is Sunday. And we're not giving them enough time on Sunday. I would like to put into the budget the monies to open the library from 10 to 6 o'clock on Sunday.
If I may respectfully ask, Councilman, once we get the grant money from the state, then we will evaluate the amount of the grant so that it does not have to come from the general fund.
I don't care if we have grant money or not. I'd like to have the library open 8 hours on Sunday.
Okay, so make your motion to have the library open for 8 hours on Sunday.
I make a motion that the citizens should get the full benefit of the library on the one day they have off by opening it at 8 hours a day, which is on Sunday from 10 to 6 o'clock.
I'll second it.
Motion was made, was seconded. Anyone in favor? Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I think I would rather give a direction to the city managers and staff to recalculate the budget to see if it's financially feasible to do so and bring it back to us at the second reading, and I would be happy to vote for it if it's feasible. Just go out and vote for it like this, I don't think that it's
right.
kind of...
I think that's probably the best thing to do, but he was arguing with the city manager, and I think it's up to this body to make the decision. So I figure, let him make his motion.
Mr. Bland, would you give the city manager direction to go?
Yeah, I will be happy to comply with what you request.
Instead of us voting it down.
All right, I withdraw the motion and we'll go that route.
Okay.
All right. The other thing, year after year, that costs the city millions of dollars since I've been here is overtime, especially overtime for the police department. It's many hundreds of thousands of dollars. Can we look into that and try to structure the police department in a way that we can minimize the overtime? I think it's $900,000 a year.
Councilman, that's
$600,000 this year.
well, every year the overtime is based upon a projection. However, we try to mitigate that through certain practices. The chief of police has been directed to do so. We've implemented several programs. However, we need to project it. It's best to project it at the rate that it's been based upon the past and try to reduce it from there. So yes, we will implement every measure. We have so on court time. The state attorney's office realizes that this is a countywide problem. We have a subpoena, electronic subpoena program, trying to schedule court time when the officers are actually working. But yes, we are attempting to trim that, but I think it's prudent for us to put down an amount and try to work from there.
Yeah. Make every due effort to try to minimize it,
Yes.
trim it. You've been the former police chief. You know the ways that overtime can be reduced. You know these secrets as a chief.
Yes.
I won't say anything more.
And Councilman, let me say this. When it comes to the overtime, when you look at that amount, there are grants that the city does receive, the police department. So I don't want to beat up on the police department coming from there.
Well, I don't know what they are. They're not in here.
Well, they are there, but
not.
for instance, we may get a DUI grant, or we may get a special task force grant. Most of those grants cover overtime.
They
So
don't say
although we
that.
expend it, we must show it in there. So there are special details, traffic related, task force related, and we get reimbursed. But we have to show what those are. We have people that are out in different agencies and task force. So what you're seeing here is the cost of that. But on the revenue side, you do see it coming back in to the city. So it's kind of deceiving of what you're looking at there. It looks like the police department is spending a lot of overtime. But there are grants, special task force. We are reimbursed a number of different ways.
Why don't you display that to us at the next budget meeting, how much grant contribution is to overtime? Because I would like to know that figure.
Okay.
The other thing I've been requesting, and I've been requesting this for several years, and my wife spoke of it at the last meeting, is that we need a grant writer. The city needs to obtain more grants, and there's thousands upon thousands of grants out there, and I don't think we're getting the full advantage of these grants without have someone specializing in obtaining them for the city.
So is that a motion to create a new position for a grant writer in the city? Is that a motion?
Absolutely. And that
Okay.
grant writer should bring in 10, 20 times its salary in grants. Otherwise, he won't be here next year.
Okay. So a motion was made to create a new position in this budget year for a new grant writer. I second that motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Here's my concern. Again, we're creating more
Oh.
spending inside the building,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and not providing to the community. If we're going to do something with an extra $30,000 or $40,000, I'd rather buy books at the library and things like that than hire more staff in here and then need to recur those costs and those pensions year after year. I agree the grant writer serves a purpose, but there's got to be somebody on staff, a la the governmental services person that Miguel used to be, that can write grants as part of their responsibility. And then as that grows into something that's self-sustaining, then we can add a person that just does that.
That is what our intentions are.
Scott, this is someone who brings in maybe it's 10 to 20 times its salary. It will buy all the books we need for the,
So
for the library.
you're
with the
willing to
proper
personally
grant.
guarantee that they'll bring in that much extra money?
I guarantee you it'll bring in more than his salary.
That's naive then. In reality, grants are a hit and miss kind of thing. You might get a grant.
That's why you need a grant writer, because they are so picky.
But I work for a nonprofit, and somebody who gives us a grant in year one might not give us the same grant in year two.
That's why you need a grant writer to get the year 2 grant, because they change from year to year.
No, that's
someone has
why
to
you-
have their eyes open
That's
every
why you
single
get
minute.
somebody who writes grant part-time until you have enough income coming in to sustain it full-time. And in the meantime, you let them do it on a part-time basis. Again, I'd rather
Counsel.
provide books for our kids than salary for yet another employee.
Councilman Blinn, would you take
Every
the-
major city has a grant writer.
Right, Councilman Blinn, would you take the manager's recommendation that he will be using staff part-time to go after grants, and hopefully in the future we
Well,
can...
that's why we're doing so poorly, because we're using part-time staff to something that needs a full-time job.
Okay.
But you
It
don't know
isn't
that we're doing it
emphasized
poorly
to
because
you
you
that
just...
it could bring in 10 times the salary.
But Mr. Blinn, you've just said you don't know how much money we receive from grants and ask staff to give us a report on
I've
how much
asked that, yeah, that's for police
So they
grants.
may
I'm
not be
talking
doing
about
it poorly.
overall
Mr.
grants.
Mayor, may I?
May I-
I'm sorry. I don't want
Since we already have a motion and there's a second, can we go for a vote?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. City Clerk, would you do walk off for me?
Your Honor,
A position of to open a new position in the 2012-2013 budget of a grant
Of a
writer.
grant writer. Yes, Mayor. Councilman Blinn,
Yes.
Mayor Pierre,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Councilman Marcellus,
No.
Councilman Galvin,
No.
Vice Mayor Sterian.
No.
Okay.
Measure fails 2-3.
All right. Go ahead, Councilman Blinn.
Yeah. It's a great disservice to the city not to have a grant writer. All right. We had something called holiday cards, which says 00. Did we once give out holiday gifts or cards that we included in the budget, but now there's 00?
Yes.
Valuation of that.
Yeah, Councilman, what we do, what we have done last year and we'll continue to do this year, in lieu of a holiday party, there will be a day off, administrative day, to be structured around the holidays so that it has minimal impact on the city.
This year's budget, ladies and gentlemen, was balanced because we had extra money from the Oaks, red lights, fines, the Bank of America you mentioned, and selling off the sanitation equipment. We're not going to have that extra money next year.
If I can correct you, Councilman, the sanitation had nothing to do with this year's budget. That rolled over into the current proposed budget. But the current budget, that was not the case dealing with sanitation.
Well, how much money do we anticipate from selling off the sanitation equipment?
I think that rolled into next year's budget, but it was about $2.9 million. And that was not all the equipment. The
My
equipment,
God, almost $3 million?
The equipment, I think, was about $900,000. I'm still looking into that. Contractually, the vendor agreed to buy garbage trucks and garbage canisters. We just made our last payment on the lease of those vehicles in August. So I will give one last try to Wage Pro to look at the trucks that we do have, because contractually they did purchase some, and they did purchase all of our canisters. Now that we made the last payment in August, I will reach out to them for them to assess their need to do a sale there, and if not, we'll be moving forward to dispose of them one way or the other.
I noticed...
But that was about $900,000.
I have to give you credit. I noticed you put the $50,000 for a capital outlay for the Gwen Mongola Center.
It's coming from Biscayne Landing too, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's coming from Biscayne Landing too. What exactly are we going to do for $50,000 there?
Staff will be giving me a presentation to evaluate the priorities of what needs to be done there first, and we'll be moving in that direction.
Because I inspected it about a week ago, and the air conditioning didn't seem to be very sound. The bathrooms are old-fashioned. The floor could be cleaned up a little bit.
I believe
Just
those
some of
three
my
are
perspectives
priorities.
on it.
Wish we could rebuild the whole place. You see the Joe Celestin Center, which is like walking into the Taj Mahal, and everything else we have now looks inadequate.
Can you send your suggestion to the manager about the Grand Golas Community Center? I mean, if you would like to see...
That's my message. I'd like to see it updated, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Matter of fact, it might be more than $50,000.
Okay.
But we use it continuously. I mean, how many days of the year is that used?
I'm not for sure, but it's used quite often
Yeah.
on a weekend basis.
And aren't they supposed to build another community center, Michael Swirlo? And
Yes.
when is that supposed to commence?
That's supposed to take place within the first 3 years of the project at Biscayne Landing.
So this is 2012, 13, 2015 or 16?
by the end of 2000.
Where's that going to be located, do you know?
I don't know exactly, but it will be located on the 180 plus acres.
Yeah.
Then, Councilman?
Well, those are things that major concern me. There's lots of small amounts of money which don't concern me, which I think we have every year. I would like to see everyone get their 5% back who lost it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Glenn. The contribution that we usually make to the North Miami Senior Foundation, is that in the budget?
Yes, that's coming out of, yes, that's in the budget.
Okay.
And we did bring that to council,
Okay.
last council meeting that was
Right.
passed.
How much is that?
I believe it's 115,000,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
that's what we've done. In
Now, I see some of the cities around town do provide additional funding to the North Miami Foundation, and I know they're here in the city of North Miami, and I think Councilman Glenn, you sit on that board, my
Yes.
understanding, okay?
Yeah, I was the president for 4 years.
He was the president for 4 years, so I just wanted to make sure that money is in it. And hopefully when we discuss Biscayne Landing, we could do a little bit better for North Miami Senior Foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, thank you very much for taking the time, you along with your staff, to meet with me on several occasions to go over the budget. It was hard work, and I was pleased to see that your staff actually was able to answer most of my questions and my concern, and most of my feedbacks was addressed in this budget. Kudos to the mayor that was able yesterday to go to 6 churches to present the budget. I was not able, well, actually I choose not to go with the mayors for the budget, but I was able to attend a couple of small meetings with my constituent to discuss a couple of things regarding this budget. But because of the information that you shared with me, I was able to answer most of those questions. However, I still have 2 concerns. One is the federal lobbyists that I see still in the budget, but I thought that last year we did not have one.
We took it out of the budget. We put it in the budget, back in the budget this year. We do foresee, as Ms. Grant indicated, you see a bottoming off, and we anticipate things to do that on the federal level. So if we do foresee that the opportunity is there to bring in a federal lobbyist to bring in that grant money, then at least the funding is there, so there to do
So are we just going to go use the same firm, or we just going to put it out there for bidding?
Well, we would
What
have
we
to
gonna
put it back out there for, we could use this, I think our contract with the other firm is over.
Okay.
But we will at least explore the option of bringing in other lobbying firms to do that for us. And that goes along with what Councilman Glenn was saying as far as the grants, because these federal lobbyists do help bring in and identify grants to the city for us to apply the applications for.
Okay. Licensing permitting. I understand that we have a decrease of 11% for the outsourcing of not the housing department.
The building?
The building and zoning. Should we oversee that, the expenses? What happened? The last time that we met, I thought that we were not supposed to have a decrease.
Well, when it comes to in particular to the building department, you see a decrease because now there's shared revenue. So although you saw in the previous years the revenue, the expense to operate, once you separate what we got in for the revenue, we were actually in the red. So this year, because although we're bringing in less revenue, the expenses will be less because of having the employees there or the contract workers that existed before. and so therefore the expense is lower. So you will see we'll be in the black.
But that doesn't mean that we are in red.
We
As a
will
city-
not be in the red.
Okay.
In years before, you saw the revenue, but then there's an expense to operate as well. So when you see the revenue coming in, on another sheet, you got to look at the expenses to operate. So for instance, if it brought in $1 million, it may have cost $1.1 million to operate. So there was a negative. So what our goal is moving forward is to, although you see shared revenue, the expenses, so when you subtract that, we'll be in the positive.
All right, then. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have for
All right,
now.
thank you, Vice Mayor. We're just going to move on quickly, Mr. City Manager. I think the city clerk, mentioned that, he's going to be, provide additional services. The marriage certificate that will be conducted, meaning that he is going to marry more people at City Hall than before. He also got the notary program, which, I think it's good for people to come here to governmental entity and have their documents notarized. I think, he wants you to fine him an additional $18,000. I think there are some other issues that he may want to talk about, but I was advised that, usually, when you have your city clerk is also have a voice, then you have a dangerous city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor.
Danger's his middle name.
Thanks for that great introduction. Let me just put things in perspective regarding the clerk's office. It appears that before getting here, our department, the clerk's office department, wasn't a well-respected department. I didn't even have a parking spot, to be honest with you. My deputy clerk didn't have a parking spot. Now, let me just put this in perspective. My fiscal year 2012 budget was $513,000 for the most part. So far, and our fiscal year isn't even over, the city clerk department has been responsible for bringing over $520,000 into the general revenue in the city of North Miami. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That is called a 520. I have it right here. The revenue to date, $520,448.64. Because our adjusted estimate, we were supposed to collect $400,000 from the occupational business licenses. It's our job to go and collect them. The council can't do it. A different department can do it. By charter, this is what we do. If my department does not collect it, it's not collected. We collected over $405,000. We exceeded the adjusted estimation. Because we are out there, we're working, we're making sure that the business owners are paying their fair share. Now, my point is, Jackie, the two part-time employees we have there, the administrative assistants, and the assistant clerk, which is Birdie, they're not sitting in the office doing nothing. We are providing remarkable services to the residents of North Miami. And because of the mayor and the council members, they forced us, which I can understand, to increase passport hours, which has increased our passport revenue by $30,000. The mayor and the council was very specific with me. They say, Mike, you're elected for a reason. You got to provide services to the residents of North Miami. Right now, we are providing free notary services to residents of North Miami. We are implementing what is called a marriage certificate program. You go on to this if you want to see the numbers. You can. We're implementing a marriage certificate program, which will generate additional revenue for the city of North Miami, which is being headed up by Alberta Purtison. In addition to that, since elected last year, every city contract and resolution this council has passed under my watch is currently made available online. We have part-time employees there who are residents of North Miami who are scanning every single contract and resolution that we have. They are currently online through the clerk's office. That has never been done before. In addition to that, so this is why I'm bragging about our accomplishments. And consider, now this year, my budget it goes up $170,000 because we have elections coming up next year, in which my department have to oversee, and we have to make sure it's ran efficiently and well.
180.
The 180, and that's because of the election. So my part, we're providing remarkable services. I have two requests, Mayor and council members. Right now, a young lady by the name of Mary retired. She was getting paid about 40-something thousand We replaced her replacement with a salary of roughly $31,000. So we replaced her, the additional funds we used to hire a part-timer. Her name is Alberta Purtison. Alberta is she has her master's in municipal clerk. Right now in the budget that was presented to me, I can't have her in my office anymore. And this is only a $20,000 request here. She's there now. I thought it would have been in the budget. Unfortunately, it's not. I had the discussion with, I love Kay, by the way. She's great. I had the discussion with her. Apparently it's not in the budget. But without Ms. Patterson there, now again, we're generating the revenue. She's doing a phenomenal job. We are increasing services to the residents of North Miami. But according to this, I can't get $20,000 to keep Alberta Purtison there as a part-timer so she can help with services like helping the office of the city manager with city board administration. She's implementing the merit certificate program. She has her master's in municipal clerk certification. And we have her only for $20,000 a year. And she is a certified city clerk. In addition to that, she's helping Jackie with the influx of public records requests that we get through the clerk's office. She's heading up the free notary service program that we're providing. And if you ever come down to the clerk's office, that line is always extremely long because we are providing services to the residents of North Miami, and we're making sure that we're making up for it by putting money in the general revenue. Last but not least, this year alone, we had about a $90,000 surplus. So we managed the budget well. So the only request that I'm requesting, two things. The first thing is I want to make sure that I keep Ms. Patterson in my office so we can continue providing the services that we've been providing thus far. That's only an additional $20,000. And that should be replaced by the administrative specialist that just retired. Her salary, there's got to be a $11,000, $12,000 surplus there. Her salary can easily cover that. And last but not least, Mayor and Council, every appointed official here and the elected official have what is called a car allowance. I got to still catch the bus. I'm requesting the car allowance like everyone else, but especially the the Alberta Purtison. Those are the only two requests that I'm making for my particular department. And again, this is a very, very important department. This department is as important as the Mayor and Council department. Duties that we are required to do under the charter, the Mayor and Council cannot do. And our department isn't, for example, if we don't go out there and we don't properly notice these individuals at the council meeting, whatever the Mayor and Council decides to do will be invalidated. This is a very important department. And fortunately, the deputy clerk, Alberta, and everyone down there, Lewis, they're doing a remarkable job making sure we live up to what we have to live up to pursuant to the laws and the charter. And they are providing remarkable services down at the clerk's office. We are increasing transparency because every contract, every resolution, every ordinance is online. They're not just sitting on their tailbone.
Thank you, Mr. City Clerk.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I hope. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
We got
Mayor,
you.
if I could, first of all, I want to commend the city clerk for his enthusiasm and the energy that he does put in that department and to bring new initiatives. And he is correct. Our lines down there are long, and there are people there. What I want to just say is that that's not something you have to vote on. I've been doing that at my level to allow these part-time positions to come in, and they're evaluated, and the cost is covered through a number of economic measures. There's sometimes we have salary savings where we have openings and we haven't hired someone, so basically what we are able to do is unilaterally allow him to continue to keep those individuals. So there is no plan to take those individuals away. They are part-time, where they will continue to be part-time.
All right. Okay, so the first request, that's something you can handle. That's no problem. The second request, which is, I guess the council have to make a decision. You want a car allowance?
Yeah, I want a car allowance like everyone else.
Okay, because the last time I checked, you were driving a...
I'm driving a what, man?
Was it a Cadillac? Okay.
A 2005 Cadillac.
You know,
Ooh.
can we could take this at the next budget hearing. The city council could make a determination on that. I mean, it's just brought up on us, and we'll make a determination on that and to see if there's any.
I'm just requesting that they include it in the budget. the 20,000 for the part-time, because I already have the two
Yeah.
part-timers
Mr.
that's
City
there.
Clerk, the manager will handle that. The second request, which the council have to make a decision on that, we'll make that decision on next budget hearing. Okay? I think we have heard from the public, we heard from the city council, the city clerk, city manager, budget manager. Can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Okay, has been made.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Marcellus.
You have to do
Sirs, if I may interrupt you, I apologize, but we need to read the entire resolution for the millage rate in its entirety, not just the caption. So can we just go back for a second and read the entire, although it was previously passed, but we just need to read it in its entirety, and after that we can move on to the ordinance for the budget.
Okay,
If
sure.
it be your pleasure.
No problem.
A resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, adopting a tentative millage rate of 8.1000 mils for fiscal year 2012-2013, providing for an effective date and all other purposes. Whereas the city of North Miami, Florida, has considered an operating budget for fiscal year 2012-2013 in accordance with the provisions of Section 200.065 Florida statutes, and whereas the millage rate necessary to fund the city's operating budget for fiscal year 2012-2013 is 8.1000 mils, which is negative 0.046%, less than the rollback rate of 8.1037 mils. And whereas in accordance with Section 200.065(5)(a) Florida Statutes 2012 as amended from time to time, a majority vote of the mayor and city council is required to adopt rate of up to 9.1225 mils, and whereas the mayor and city council find that the adoption of the proposed tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2012-2013 is in the best interest of the city, now therefore be it duly resolved by the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida as follows. Section 1, adoption of tentative millage rate. The mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida hereby adopt 8.1000 mils as the tentative millage rate on assessed property value necessary to fund the city's fiscal year 2012-2013 operating budget. Section 2, effective date. This resolution shall become effective immediately upon adoption, passed and adopted by, well, I guess that's read afterwards. So I'm going to conduct a roll call vote. Councilman Galvin?
No.
This is the resolution that you already passed initially. This is
You're rereading the millage rate.
right of the resolution.
My apologies.
That's
I'll
fine.
vote yes on the millage.
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Mayor Pierre,
Yes.
Councilman Marcellus,
Yes.
Councilman Bland,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sterry. Measure passes 5-0. Now, with regards to the ordinance, we had a motion by Councilman Bland and a second by Councilman Marcellus. Roll call vote. Mayor Pierre,
Yes.
Councilman Marcellus,
Yes.
Councilman Bland,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Steril, and then Councilman Galvin.
No.
Measure passes 4-1.
Thank you. Ms. City Attorney, any other business to be conducted?
No, sir.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Hearing none, motion to adjourn has been made. Anyone wish to second it? Anyone wish to second it? No. Hearing none, motion passed.
No.
Thank you so much. I'll see all of you tomorrow afternoon at 7 o'clock for September 11th council meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, 5:30.
That was always there. This is the last budget.
Our meeting's
I thought it was there until I just looked at the old line. It was always there.